planning on posting your test probably tomorrow or at least sometime this weekend. And then it'll be due, not Thursday, Wednesday. So you'll have the weekend and then, well, if I get it up this weekend, you'll have the weekend and Monday and Tuesday, and it'll be due at the end of the day on Wednesday. Questions about that? Okay, so last time, in class, this was yesterday. I have not posted that video yet, but that's okay. This stuff will be kind of new, that is to say, it's not necessarily connected exactly to the stuff that we were talking about yesterday. So yesterday in Tuesday, we really got into Jungian psychology theory. We talked about the Myers-Briggs, we sort of broke that down. So that is something I would want you to know for your test, at least know your own type, at least know a little bit about your type, what that is supposed to, whether or not you believe it, or whether or not it matches what it's supposed to say about you. So just have that information ready to go for the test, okay? So I guess I'm saying, I know you guys didn't get this in class, but make sure you are well apprised. Other questions?
Is the test time loaded?
Is it what?
Does it have a time limit?
Doubt it. No, definitely not. Okay, so we're gonna cover the last few personality theories. Today. And these theories are, I would say, a little bit more modern. They're the theories that are modern in the sense that they came around sooner, but also modern in the sense that it's probably what most, at least research psychologists, that is to say, professors and those of us who study psychology, it's probably the one that we go to the most. I personally do not, but it is the one that you will see the most if you do research into personality, or if you're looking for a measure or something to do research. So there's a couple of these that I want to talk about. I will probably say some bad things about them too, but one of them is called the Big Five. And then one I would just call cognitive theory. Do not write it like that. It's sort of a cognitive behavioral theory. So these are the two that we're going to look at today. I know you think of some more along the way, but these are the main two. So one of the things that we were talking about in yesterday's class is how the Myers-Briggs and Jungian personality theory are type theories. That is to say, they type you, right? You get that 4-letter code and that's your type. Or even if you just look at introvert, extrovert, that first letter, right? That's your type. And so the Myers-Briggs and Jungian personality theory is really interested in saying, which of these are you? Which of these should we call you? You'll see in the video I talk about how even though you are typed in those two theories, you still are expected to have some traits of the other kind. So if you're extrovert, there are still times that you're introverted and vice versa. What these theories are, or at least the Big Five, we'll have to think about this one. What the Big Five is what we call a trait theory. So that's different than, again, the type theory that we've been talking about, the type theories we've been talking about. Here we have a trait theory. The Big Five came about in a modern way, I guess you would say. So one thing I didn't say when we were talking about the Jungian theories was that Jung's theories came from his clinical work. So Jung thinking about that people could be thinking types or feeling types or introverts or extroverts, right? These types, Jung's sense of that came from his clinical work, right? He was a clinician in addition to a scientist. And so he was developing these theories after seeing person after person after person and developing this framework or this model of what types of people he was seeing, right? That there was some variation, but they seemed to be relatively limited in variation. People are either making decisions logically or practically, or they're making decisions with their feelings or with their empathy, right? Well, the big five didn't come about with that theoretical grounding. That is to say, a theory, and we'll start talking about this after the test, right? A theory is, I see something out in the world and I develop a sense of how I think that all goes together, right? I see people out in the world and I begin to develop a theory about how people may differ based on what I've observed or what I've experienced. The big five was developed using a statistical model. That is to say, from what I understand, they got a bunch of college students together over years or months, and they basically started this research by saying, how do you describe people? How would you begin to describe your friends? How would you begin to describe yourself? How would your friends begin to describe you? And so what they're looking for are just here the words, right? That you might say somebody's funny, or somebody's open-minded, or somebody's really social, or somebody's really shy, right? That you're just sort of looking for these words that people are using to describe each other. So through that methodology, they came up with these five terms. This is the big five. It used to be three, actually, but subsequently they've added these other two. And so the big five are these personality traits. One is, oh God, don't spell it that way. No, that's right. Neuroticism.
You said these are personalities?
Personality traits. Extroversion. Openness. Agreeableness. And conscientiousness. So these kind of turned out to be, statistically, the ways in which folks described each other the most, right? Now, they weren't necessarily using these words exactly, but it would have been the researcher's job to say, some people are calling their friends crazy, or some people are calling their friends, I don't know, spaz, or some people are calling their friends nervous or anxious, right? That you can imagine, say, describe your friend. Well, I got this one guy, he's real spaz. He's always freaking out about stuff. And that, from that, right, they distilled this word. Okay, well, what are people talking about generally? Well, they're talking about something that a psychologist might call neuroticism, right? And neuroticism is this quality of being kind of easily knocked off emotional kilter. These are folks who are, for lack of a better word, just kind of unstable. Right? These are folks who, and not necessarily in a diagnosable way, but this might be somebody who's always anxious or always afraid or always worked up, right? Freud's anal retentive would have fit in here. Right? Somebody who's always, whoa, we gotta do it the right way. OCD, all of that kind of stuff. Not in a real way, but in the way we call each other. So here's one, neuroticism, okay? This idea of being emotionally unstable. In fact, in some research, it's called emotional instability. The next is extroversion. there is a difference in the way the big five spells extroversion, in the way that Jungian and Myers-Briggs theory spells extraversion. So I've never seen anybody really make a big deal about it, but I've noticed that when Jungians or Myers-Briggs folks are writing about it, they will spell it with an A, and then all of the big five folks spell it with an O. I'm gonna go with Jung's version. He's the one who made the word up, so I'm gonna use the one with an A. But this is how they spell it, so for that reason, it's spelled like that here. Here, extroversion, and you guys weren't in the class for this, but you'll see me talk about how for Jung and how for the Myers-Briggs, introversion and extroversion are really about these deep psychological qualities. That is to say, where do you spend more of your psychological time? If you're an introvert, you spend more of your psychological time in your head, in your feelings, planning, thinking, imagining, creating. If you're an extrovert, you spend more of your time in the world, seeing things, doing things, activities. What's this about? What's that about? What's that about, right? So here's the real difference. It's just this psychological focus. Are you more introverted? That is to say, are you more focused inside, or are you more focused extrovertedly? That is to say, are you more focused outside? Okay, that's what the real meaning is, and we have, of course, come to think about folks who are extroverted, who spend most of their psychological time out in the real world, as being probably more social, just because it's easier for them. That's where they are already. But again, that's not the true psychological sense in my book. According to the big five, we're gonna look at that more superficial version of extroversion. Here we mean, is this person social? Do they like to go to parties? Are they out a lot, or are they shy? So this version of extroversion is probably closer to how you thought of extroversion before you came into this class or before you looked into it yourself. This is just that. Is this person social? Are they outgoing? Etc., etc. Jung's extroversion, again, those people are probably like that, but it's because of this difference in their psychology. It's not just, again, describing their behavior. Again, thinking about that idea, right? These are just friends describing people they know. So outgoing, people probably know the word extroverted. What's your friend like? Oh, he's really outgoing. Oh, he's really social. He's really talkative, right? All of those things are what's going to feed into this idea of extroversion. Does this make sense? Okay. So now, well, again, these are the original three. These are the original three. Let me just describe openness here. Openness basically means, the full name is openness to new experience. And so this really is reflecting how you might call somebody open-minded. How you might call somebody a person who will try anything new, right? These are just reflecting those qualities of a person who's open versus somebody who's closed, right? No, I only do it this way. No, I only like my own way. No, I don't try new foods, right? We can also think of folks like that. We might call them stubborn, or we might call them picky, or we might call them closed-minded, right? But this idea of this dichotomy of being high on agreeableness or low on agreeableness begins to make sense for us. Is this person, openness. Is this person open-minded, or is this person more closed-minded? I'm not sure if I've made it clear. I certainly haven't said it, but maybe you've assumed. The way these things are used is you're rated, right? On let's say a scale of 1 to 100. And so it's not like, again, the Myers-Briggs where you get 1 or 2 of them, or you're selecting or even necessarily ranking them. Really, we're just interested in how much of each of these do you have? How neurotic are you? How extroverted are you? How open are you? Or are you low in openness? Or are you low in extroversion, right? So we're really just ranking these here. So if you ever took like a Big Five test, you get the Big Five, and they would just give you some score for each one of your traits. Right? Open-minded, closed-minded. Agreeableness. These two new ones, so they kind of went back and did some more of their research in terms of trying to figure out if there are any more traits that they were missing in terms of at least how people describe each other. They won't call it that anymore, by the way. That is my take of people describing each other. But for me, agreeableness and openness are really, really similar. Agreeableness, in my mind, reflects an openness to people a little bit more, though not necessarily experience. So they're kind of covering some of the same ground in my book, but agreeable just means more go along.
Like a yes man?
Sort of like a yes man, right? I think in a very, very extremely high agreeable would be, hey, do you want to go rob a bank? Yeah, man, sure, whatever you want. And then go to church after. Yep, sounds good. Right. The agreeable is just going to be the person who is going to go along, is going to want to get along with people, and by that regard is going to probably do some of the things that they ask. Now, we shouldn't assume that if somebody is agreeable, for instance, that they're all the way agreeable, right? You can be moderately agreeable, and we probably all want to be moderately agreeable at least, not just completely stubborn or completely closed off, right? And so all of these are probably going to have some sense of, if you're extreme, that doesn't look good, but if you're extreme, that probably also doesn't look good. I don't know about neuroticism. There's probably one end you prefer over there. And then conscientiousness. Conscientiousness, again, is it's not similar to openness, but it begins to be similar to agreeableness. And that conscientiousness here in particular means kind of carefulness, but in particular sort of carefulness around people, right? Are you conscientious? Somebody's having a bad day, don't call on them in class 10 times if they look like they're in a bad mood. And I'm not saying anybody is that way, but right. Am I conscientious to those things? Right? Am I conscientious to the fact that somebody's behind me and they've got a bag full or armful of bags and I could maybe hold the door? Am I conscientious? Right? Am I paying attention to the little things? Conscientious can also mean sort of awareness of small details, but again, in my read, it tends to really focus on people here. Do you remember birthdays? Do you remember anniversaries, right? All of these things are conscientious, but it also can mean, did you fold the bed or make the bed perfectly with the, military corners? Somebody who's conscientious would catch all of that stuff. Does this make sense? Right? These are the big five, right? These are the ways in which, people tended to describe each other, and the way that we came up with this list, again, is really statistical. We threw all of those descriptions into a computer that could basically count them, and we maybe coded some of them that sounded basically the same. Okay, crazy and spaz are kind of the same description of a person, right? And then we derived these five. The problem I have in particular with the big five is, well, several, but one of the first is that it is theoretical. So we were just talking about how Jung sat with people and through his experiences said, you know what, I theorize that people are like this, or like this, or like this, or like this, right? And so he creates this way of typing different people, and later Myers and Briggs, right, we didn't really have the science back then, but later Myers and Briggs come along and put some statistics to that, right? They go around and start testing people and seeing if people actually vary like this, and if that makes sense, and if those make differences in those folks' lives. And so there's some theory there, right? There's some sense of what we think will happen, and this is an important step in science. It's not that we should just cast a net and then pull things in and then try to make what we can make of it, which is what happens with a big five. Let's just cast a net, see what people are saying about each other. I have no theory about what that's going to be. I have no expectations, because the way science is supposed to work is that it is a confirmation of a theory. You don't just go look at something and then on the spot decide what it is. You have to have some theory about why it is that thing. And so the big five is atheoretical. It is completely statistically derived, and for my money, I don't really think it has a soul. I don't really think it dives deep. I don't really think it is as psychological as some of the other tests, because it's not really telling you about anything in the person's head. It's really just telling you how they act, how a person from the outside of them would describe them. And the research that I have done also demonstrates that it's not really good at selecting for different types of people. You're not going to figure out what type of job you might be better suited for by taking a Big Five. Right? The way when we had the first day of class and I was asking some of you if you're nurses or this type of thing, I probably got a lot of it wrong, but the sense of knowing the type of person you are to be able to predict some things about your life is something that a personality test probably should be able to do, and this one can't do it. It's good for research statistics, that is to say, because it was derived statistically, it holds together well statistically, so when you use it in tests, it does good work statistically, and so that's why you see it used in academic psychology. But in terms, again, of thinking about, well, what does it mean if we're really psychologists? We should understand how the psychology works. We don't really know here. And so here's my problems with trait theory, at least the Big Five. Any questions about the Big Five? I think it has some usefulness. One of the best scales that it really is known for is this neuroticism scale. This seems to be something that is an important finding for us to know. I don't know that it's a personality trait. I would really call it a temperament, or maybe kind of a long-term mood. Some people are more neurotic or anxious than others, but it is something they tend to want to go away. It is not usually a piece of their personality. It usually is something that they would like to not be anxious anymore, would like to not be worrying about this thing. They can remember a time when they didn't. Okay, questions about that? No? Okay, I appreciate you saying no. Thank you for talking to me. So let's look at this cognitive theory. And this theory, really all personality theories, strangely enough, I think, connect to clinical theories. So all of these, I don't know, maybe not the Big Five, it's another of its failings, but if you think about the Myers-Briggs, you think about those Jungian theories, you think about the Freudian theories, right? All of those tend to connect to clinical work. They really give us a look at, or a way to look at how people are different, maybe what's going on for them in their life. And so what we're going to see here in terms of the cognitive theory is almost more of a clinical theory than a personality theory, but you'll see maybe how these things connect. So the cognitive theory, cognitive behavioral theory, looks at this triad of cognition, behavior, and emotion. The three things that we pretty much agree are the broad and general aspects or general qualities of psychology, right? What can your mind do? Well, it can think, it can feel, and it can make you move. So broadly, these are the three aspects of the human mind. Some psychoanalysts would come along and say, do not forget about the unconscious, but that is not part of this theory. So for cognitive psychologists, one thing that they're really interested in is exactly what's going on in your head at any given time. What thoughts are you carrying around? Which perspective are you looking through? What's your way of thinking? And so, because of this, the theory around cognitive personality is all about the fact that your thinking can dictate your behavior. and your thinking can dictate your emotions. Let's see if we can find some examples of this. So let's say you think about yourself. I suck at psychology. Let's say you think that. I suck at psychology. What might that do to your behavior? How might that affect your behavior?
You're gonna have like a really negative outlook on the class every time you come, so then you're probably not gonna do as well just because you automatically think that you're gonna do bad.
Okay, so it might lower your achievement in the class. It might lower the way that you study, show up, prepare. Good. What else?
Might make you feel worthless.
Might make you feel worthless. I didn't ask about your feelings yet, but yes. Behaviors though? How might it change your behavior? Yes, sir? That's you in the red? Yep.
You might not work as hard.
What's that?
Work is hard.
You might not work as hard? Exactly, right? So I'm not good at this anyway. I might as well, just blow this off and focus on something I'm good at. Yes, ma'am. I suck at psychology. How might that change your behavior?
Like you won't try as hard, like you won't do the work as much as you would if you were good at it.
Okay, so you might say this also isn't any fun for me, and so I'm not even gonna do the homework. How might it affect your emotions? I suck at psychology.
Make you feel worthless. Alright, I didn't realize you wanted
It
to
might
say
make
that.
you feel worthless. What emotion is that? Worthless feels
Bad.
change the first letter. Sad. You might feel sad, right? So you might feel that sense of worthlessness, right? Which really is still a thought, right? I am worthless. But that thought, again, may make you feel sad, right? That might not make you feel good about yourself. Anything else? Emotions? I suck at psychology. You got to test this Friday. Yes, sir.
It can make you anxious.
Yeah, it can make you anxious, right? It can make you worried about the stuff, you have to maybe take this class because it's a gen ed, or it was the only one you thought you'd be kind of good at. And so it might make you feel anxious when you have to take those tests or do assignments.
Could it also make you feel motivated?
It may also make you feel motivated, sure. You might flip that over and say, I really suck at this, and I better do, my homework, or I'm not gonna get a good grade. I really want that 4.0. Good. How might biting your fingernails affect your thoughts? Oh, that's weird. How might biting your fingernails affect your thoughts?
If you're stressed out and start biting your fingernails, it may help you clear your mind so you can think more rationally.
So it might clear your mind?
Yeah.
Okay, good. What else? Biting your fingernails, how might that affect your thoughts? Not that many of you in here, so you're gonna have to do some work. Yes, ma'am, in the yellow, that you volunteered.
Is it yellow?
I think so. Tan, beige.
Sure, I guess. I don't know, it would clear my head for me.
Say what?
I don't bite my fingernails, but it would clear my head for me at least.
It might clear your head, okay. What else?
Makes me feel like-
Thinking, what might you think? What are some phrases you might have in your head? Yeah. It might give you a sense of comfort. I would say that's an emotional reaction. How might it change your thinking? Yes, sir?
You might just think your nails are long.
Okay. You might think your nails are long. I mean, perhaps, right? If you're biting them to the nub and they grow normal length, you might go, wow, my nails are really long. Okay. Yeah.
Oh fuck.
Why is that happening?
Nervousness?
Okay, I would say that's a thought that's probably making you bite your fingernails, right? But you guys can say something like, I think my fingernails look gross. People are gonna see how, bitten off and nasty they look. Or it might be embarrassing in class if people see me doing this. Maybe they think I'm sucking my thumb. I wonder if somebody would even date anybody that bites their fingernails. That's such a gross, whatever. It doesn't have to be logical. We're not logical. And so you might have this behavior that's changing the way that you think about yourself or think about the situation. I like that you gave me some positive ones too, right? That might help clear your head. That might make your thinking clearer or sharper because it takes away some of your anxiety. And here we can think about that, right? How would biting your fingernails affect your emotions? Well, it might calm you down, right? It's probably not gonna make you anxious. You're probably doing it because you're anxious, right? And so it might calm you down. It might, disgust you. It might make you worried about what people will think about you. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, one more. How might, this will be easier, I guess, maybe. How might being angry affect your behaviors? What you got?
You could like throw things around or like slam doors and stuff.
All right, you like to throw things around, slam doors. What do we call that? Which defense mechanism is this for boys? Watch that video.
Isn't it like physical?
No. Regression, right? Like a kid. We talk about that. I think that was in here.
Yeah.
Acting like a kid, right? Peeling out, punching walls. Right? So you're angry, you hit things. What else? Angry, you do what? What do you do when you're angry?
I kind of focus on what I'm angry about and focus less on psychology.
You try to change what you're focused on.
Yeah.
So for here, there's a cognitive piece, right? It makes you change your thinking. What else? Emotions? Yes, sir. When you're angry, what type of behavior might you have?
You act irrationally.
Okay, you might act irrationally, okay? One more? Yes, ma'am?
Probably like tapping your fingers really hard or like just like clenching your fists or something.
Okay, so clenching your fist or tapping your fingers. How might being angry affect your thinking? How might being angry affect your thinking? Yes, sir.
I don't know. I feel like you'd probably regress again. You just wouldn't really think about it too much. You just think about being angry, which would make you angry.
Okay, we call that ruminating, right? You might ruminate, spin in your head. That's stupid. I can't believe they said that to me. Boy, if I see him again, I'm so mad, right? That's ruminating. You're just kind of working yourself up, right? So you're mad and you're thinking about being mad, and that's making you madder. Oh, we gotta, here. One more. Yes, ma'am. The black. What'd she say loud?
Focus on what makes her angry.
You do what when someone makes you angry? You might focus on what makes you angry. So still ruminating, okay? What else? Thinking. Thoughts might you have? Oh, I thought you had your hand up again. All right. Yes, ma'am, in the beige.
Oh, I don't have an idea.
Well, that's okay. See if I can make you angry enough to think something. What'd you say?
You said what?
If you're angry, how does it change your thinking?
I'm not, no, someone said it become irrational.
Is that it? What else? What are you thinking now? Am I getting you mad?
No, I'm just confused.
All right. Maybe you get confused. What am I so pissed off about? What's going on here? Right? But you could say any number of things, right? I get angry, I start thinking I'm worthless. I'm angry, I start thinking I gotta fight this person. I'm angry, I start thinking, well, everybody's angry sometimes, so it's fine that I'm angry. Whatever. You can say it. the point here is that this cognitive theory of personality, right? First of all, it's relatively flexible. There's not necessarily this locked in personality here, but what you see that they're talking about is just this idea that each of these can affect the other two, right? That the way that you think affects the way that you behave. That is to say, the type of person you show up as. It also affects your emotions, and vice versa, right? The clinical piece of this, of course, is if you show up and you're in an emotionally damaged place, and I, as a clinician, can't access that because it's too wounded or too raw. Well, let's just think about your thinking. What are you telling yourself about yourself? What's the first thing you think when you get up in the morning or go to bed at night? What's it like for you when you have to go sit in that class you told me you don't like too much, right? And getting them to acknowledge their own thinking, and then through that, maybe change it, right? You said you suck at psychology, but you've gotten a B on the past 3 tests. Seems like you're okay. Maybe you don't like psychology, right? Here we are changing the way that you're thinking, because not liking something and not being good at it give you different behaviors, right? I don't like it, but I'm good at it, so I can do it, versus I don't know how I feel about it, but I definitely suck at it, so why even try? Does this make sense? Right, how all of these things can affect the other two, and this is really the cognitive principle of personality, right? And it is also, again, how they approach clinical work, thinking about if you come in with a behavior that's problematic, let's start with your emotions, or let's start with your thinking. Understanding that changing one of these will change this other one. Questions you have for me? Yes, sir.
So with like the question like which comes first, the like thought, the action, or the emotion?
Yeah.
Like this kind of like looks like that, but is it like there's no like straight answer? Like it's just like a continuous wheel that it's all go together?
Yeah, I think there is no straight answer to that question. I think if anything, it's person dependent. So that question I usually ask in class. I don't think we did it this semester just because of the way the first day went. But usually I will ask the class that and kind of get a poll. And you'll find that somebody will say every one of those, right? Somebody will say, I think first, and then I have an emotion about it. Some folks will say, I just end up doing things, and then I realize how I felt about having done that thing. And so I really do think it's probably person specific. That being said, I do believe in the unconscious, and so it might just be that's the first thing that person notices, right? Maybe they happen all at once, but the first thing that the person notices is how they feel about it. Good question. Other questions? Okay, so let me make sure I talk about everything. So, like I said, your test will be dropped on Friday or this weekend. I haven't made the test yet, let me be honest. So, usually I do an in-class test, so I have that test made, but that's not gonna work for you because again, you're gonna have open notes, and that's usually just a test where you come in and take it. I will probably borrow several of those questions and maybe just try to rearrange some of the ones that would have been multiple choice into maybe short answer, or into some type of essay question. That is to say, the test will mostly be an essay test. It will be the type of test where I ask you to kind of think through a problem. Again, I may ask you to know some stuff about your own personality and talk about, maybe just give your opinion about even, but just checking to see that you looked it up, right? So looking at your personality, looking at some of these different theories, I may ask you some questions about comparing different theories. So how does Freud's theory of the unconscious compare to Jung's theory of the unconscious? Give me a paragraph, right? So looking for that type of stuff. So you will be able to use your notes, you will be able to use your book or anything else that you want. But again, these will be the type of questions that are gonna make you think even, with having that information right there, okay? Questions for me about the test? You guys are out of it today. You guys are always out of it. All right, I will see you next week then, that's all I got. Like I said, look for your test, this Friday or Saturday or Sunday, and, it'll be due Wednesday. All right, have a good weekend.